Please take a moment and hit those like and subscribe buttons. While a small gesture, it really means a lot to Wild 7 Studios and allows us to continue creating meaningful and fun content for your viewing pleasure.
I am Naz Red. I am a filmmaker, artist, fashion, comic books, anything creative I'm into. I like it. That's what I am. I'm just a maker. That's what I do. Killer Comanche is a comic book that the idea of it came to me in about 2016. It was a time when the world was crazy, and the world still feels crazy. And I remember at that time I was watching a lot of Westerns. I was reading a lot of comic books, as I do, because I really love comic books and movies. And I was reading a lot of Louis L'Amour at the time. Not a lot. Like, I read 3 books of Louis L'Amour, and I just kind of stumbled upon, for anybody that doesn't know, Louis L'Amour is this Western novelist. And I read 3 of his books, and it sort of created this desire to write a Western story. But then also, it was, I mean, it sounds so like, oh, but it was kind of a vision of this Comanche Indian, Native American, that had the sort of, what you see in the comic book is what I sort of imagined. And I remember it was during one summer. I think it was either 2015 or 2016. I really don't remember. But I was just soaking up a lot of Western materials. Along with Louis L'Amour, I read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which was a really good book, just good book in general to read, to understand the Holocaust, essentially, that the Native Americans went through with the arrival of the Europeans and all of that stuff. And also, there was another book, Empire of the Summer Moon, that I read, which was, admittedly, I feel like it feels very sensationalistic, and it was very, it had a lot of gory details about the Comanche Indians and stuff like that. But really, it just came from the vision of this Comanche guy and a desire to tell a story that has a Western background, where the main guy wasn't a John Wayne or a Clint Eastwood, which I like those guys, and no disrespect if you hate those, archetypes or whatever. But it was just a desire to see something different in a Western background. And that's what Killer Comanche is. The other Westerns that I was watching I can rattle off a few names, like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I remember McCabe and Mrs. Miller being one of the Westerns that I watched in that summer and stuff. And I think when you're talking Westerns, people generally tend to think of 2 types, if they even know Westerns or if they're the type to enjoy that genre, which is they think John Wayne and then they think Clint Eastwood. Like, for instance, I think the most rock and roll genre of Western is spaghetti Western, right? It's cool, it's fun, and stuff like that. Within the spaghetti Western, you have there are 3 different types of spaghetti Westerns that I've found in my research, in my studying the genre and just liking the genre, where the first wave, or not types, but just waves, that genre came in 3 waves, let's say. And I've seen this in documentaries, I've read this in places. There's a great book by a gentleman, I believe, by the name of Christopher Frayling, who wrote Something to Do with Death, which is a great book on Sergio Leone. But the 3 types are, the first wave you had Clint Eastwood, the strong, silent type. And then from that wave, you got Franco Nero's Django. You know that one. Then the second wave was like the political spaghetti Westerns that Sergio Corbucci did, with Compañeros, which is one that I really enjoyed, that I saw a long time ago. An actor that's really great in those films is Tomas Milan, because he's not really like the Clint Eastwood type. He's kind of hippie-ish. He has a mop top, and there was a film, Run Man Run, that I really enjoyed. I saw that one, not in that period, but a long time ago, where he plays this guy named Cuchillo, and he's just this kind of sloppy guy, and he's got this lady that loves him, and she's like, one day I will marry you, Cuchillo, and stuff, you know, and he's running away, and he's running, run man, run. So then you have those. You have the strong silent type, and then you have the political westerns, and then you have the parodies, which I admittedly I haven't seen because I find older comedies that are genre-based, I find them a little tedious, but I'm going to get into them. But one of the movies that are pretty well known from that camp is My Name is Nobody, which has a great score. I've never seen the film, but I love the score. It's got a... It has a great song by Ennio Morricone. And then the third is Twilight spaghetti westerns. Twilight spaghetti westerns, there's a film that I was actually watching again at the office just a few weeks ago, and my partner Chris was like, what is this? This looks amazing. And I said, this is A Man Called Blade. The Twilight spaghetti westerns were like when all the sets were not destroyed, but like muddy and disgusting, and it's like the tail end of it. And A Man Called Blade is a great Twilight spaghetti western. One that I haven't seen in a long time, but I'm keen to rewatch it, is Kioma. And those are like dirtier, they're nastier. Like A Man Called Blade is fairly gory. The biggest, I would say, western that informed Killer Comanche, I have no problem saying, is a television series that I used to watch as a little boy. And that summer, I bought the DVD, and I was watching that DVD, and it was one of the greatest summers of my life. I remember I was eating cereal, watching that show. It was called The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
My God, he touched Pete's piece.
Nobody touches Pete's piece.
Starring the one and only Bruce Campbell. It was amazing. It had sci-fi and magic and this and that, and I think that's what I sort of put into Killer Comanche, that sort of sci-fi magic kind of stuff and fun stuff. I wouldn't say Killer Comanche is a straight Western genre type thing, like an old Elmore Leonard type 30 Lashes Less One type story. A lot of fantastical elements are at play there, so I would call it a Western fantasy. I wouldn't call it a straight Western. I think straight Westerns don't really have fantasy elements aside from the mythos of the making of America or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you were to classify it, I think it is maybe a little closer to Tolkien or George R.R. Martin, just because of the fact that there are fantastical elements. I wouldn't call it a straight Western, no. I would call it a fantasy. I think it's a fantasy. I think it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. I think you can't really do pulp, you know, now without talking a little bit or just tipping your hat off to Tarantino, who's like, since I was 12 and I saw Pulp Fiction in theaters, I was like, that's what I want to do. And so he's a huge hero. Tim Burton, I would say, is somebody that's influenced me from before I discovered Tarantino. I was into him. There are lots of people, like, for instance, there's a guy named Shitoro Ishinomura who created Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, which is what Power Rangers and stuff is based on. And I'm a big fan of that guy. I'm a big fan of Junji Ito, who does those horror mangas. I love that stuff. I'm a huge fan of Stan Lee. I love that guy. My dream is we do Killer Comanche movies, and I do a cameo in each one. I'll be like, I'm generally pretty easy when it comes to movies. I like everything. So there's a lot of directors that I admire, but off the top of my head, I mean, going beyond Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, I love because of just his films are the best, and I like that he explores spiritual stuff in his films. I think that's really interesting. In terms of artists, I was always a big fan of Ralph Steadman, who did the illustrations for Hunter S. Thompson's work and stuff like that. And Hanna-Barbera, I like them. They're cool. I like anybody that makes cartoons. I love Walt Disney. I like what he did, okay? I'm not a big fan of big crazy companies. Well, whatever. What are you gonna do? I'm a big fan of animation, so a lot of animators. I like Charles M. Schultz. I like, you know, there's so many. I mean, anybody that creates, my hat is off to you if you're doing something that people are enjoying and stuff. So, yeah, Takashi Miike, the man. Chan-wook Park, the man. These are all directors and stuff. In terms of manga or comic books, I would have to say a huge influence on me is Stan Sakai, the creator of Usagi Yojimbo. I love that comic book. It's the greatest thing. Kevin Laird and Kevin Eastman, too, the creators of Ninja Turtles, they're big influences on me. Haim Saban, creator of Power Rangers. Hell yeah. These people that I mentioned are all brilliant. The way the spirit of these renegade artists informed Killer Comanche is that is Blue Feather. The character is not down to work for some big organization. He's not down to get orders shouted at him. He just wants to go through life and do his thing. And in that sense, that shouldn't make you a renegade in this life, just wanting to go through life and doing your thing. But unfortunately, in a world that just wants you to do their thing, doing your own thing makes you a renegade. And I think that's the commonality between Blue Feather and all those cool guys and women that I mentioned. Did I mention Claire Denis? I love her too. Yeah. My ultimate goals for Killer Comanche is just to keep writing it and keep making it. I don't want to make a movie of it, at least not anytime soon. I just want it to exist in the comic book medium and do what it does. There's a comic book that I love called Saga. I don't know if these guys are still sticking with this plan, but they were like, we're not going to make any movies of it and stuff. And I respect that. I feel like a lot of people make a comic book so they can make a movie. Like it's like one step towards them being able to make a movie. That's not really the case with Killer Comanche. With Killer Comanche, my goal was to make a good comic book and make a good comic book series. And so my goal is just to keep telling his story. I know it may sound grim, but I've told my partners that I know how his story ends, and I have it written somewhere, and I'm going to hide it somewhere, and I'm telling my partners where it's hidden, so that if I get hit by a bus or like an antelope stampede crushes me to death, they'll know where to find the story, and they could give it to Rick or whichever artist is on it at that time. I would like to just keep continuing his story. There are more places that I feel like he should go, and there are more people that I want him to meet. And I feel like I'm just not, and I'm not ready for having a production discussion on him, because I just want to hang with him for a little bit before that all happens, if that happens. And I don't even care, you know what I mean? Like, here at Wild 7, we make things for the medium that they are made for. If we're making a show, it's a show. It's, you know, it can have other ancillary medium things, like it could be a comic book, it could be this. But for right now, Killer Comanche is a comic book. And my goal is to just keep telling his story, issue after issue after issue. And ultimately, the biggest goal, and this may make me seem like a comic book martyr, but it's true. I just want to entertain. I just want to tell a bunch of stories that are very entertaining. I'm not looking to teach really anything other than just fun stories, and that's it. That's it. And I hopefully in the process be a little respectful and stuff of history, though not too much. I would not feel comfortable saying that this is an accurate historical document. I'm not a historian. I like history, it's very interesting, but that's not what I do. Ultimately, what I'm doing is just trying to entertain, and that's what it's designed to be. But it deviates in the sense that he is kind of living in a different multiverse from us. We're at the ground level right now. We're at issue 1, so there's a lot of things that are happening in issue 1 that are different from our world. For instance, the religion of the Dorogo Kami, or the skinwalkers, who are these werewolves and stuff. these are part of the mythology of Killer Comanche. It's not really a part of the mythology of America. The mythology of America is something else, or the mythology of the world and stuff. So it's meant to sort of somewhat be grounded in history, but it goes off and does its own thing. Like, for instance, if you've read issue 1, you know it starts in a West that we kind of recognize, but Blue Feather goes like to the future. He's more Doctor Who than the Man with No Name, though he is kind of like the Man with no name, our Man with no name. The next issue, we're aiming for fall of this year. More issues coming? Yes, you better believe it. Yes, I would like to just keep this going. Everything that I do, I highly enjoy. I highly enjoy making films. I highly enjoy producing. I highly enjoy working here, making comic books. But writing prose or writing a comic book, it's very solitary, and I enjoy that activity just as much as collaborating and stuff. And so apart from the goal of wanting to craft cool little stories with this character, the goal is just to keep going. Just there's more to say with him. I'm curious. I want to know. It sounds so goofy. It sounds like I have nothing to do with it and it's just coming to me or something. But you don't know what your story is going to be until you sit down and at the paper and start writing and stuff. So you do find yourself in a place of surprise and stuff. And so I'm looking forward to making more issues so I can get surprised, you can get surprised, and we can all have fun with Blue Feather and enjoy his adventures. You can get Killer Comanche at wild7studios.com at our digital shop. You can also get it on amazon.com. If you want a hard copy, go to our website and order a hard copy. I highly recommend that. I highly recommend also getting the digital copy, so you have it both on your tablet and in your hands. This is the hard copy right here. See this? You see this? This is money. Money in terms of good quality adventure. This is adventure. This is, imagine this was a glass of lemonade, and imagine this is this, and imagine I'm at a beach. What you would have is a picture of somebody that needs nothing else in life. Nothing. Nothing. Lemonade, this, beach. So arrange that for yourself. You deserve it. Wild 7 is a movie studio. Debbie and the Devil is our first film. It is run by myself, Chris Troll, and April Mendoza, and they are my partners, and we are basically renegade cinema. Whatever you think is cool about cinema when you were young and cool, that's what Wild 7 is. Now you're old and lame, so you can observe us from a distance. I'm just kidding. You're not old and lame. You're great. Wild 7 is just basically a fun factory. It's a fun house. It's a dream factory. It's a place where creative things happen, creating the ultimate in entertainment. I can prove all of these things using science. Debbie and the Devil is a horror film. Some are calling it a horror comedy because it's quite fun. And it's 3 interconnected horror stories. Very epic. And it's a film I love and enjoy very much. Not just because I made it, because it's awesome. You can get Debbie and the Devil at our website at wild7studios.com or at Vimeo On Demand. We will be on other platforms very soon. Check us out on YouTube. Check out our YouTube channel at Wild7 Studios. Things are being dropped daily, so try to keep up. Try to keep up. But it's a lot of fun. Our world is a lot of fun, and if you're watching this and you're into our world, hey, if you're new to our world, welcome. I am Mr. Red, and I live here like a troll of fun.